stylish. And the guy said, look, can you help me with a tie here? So I got into business of selling ties and box sets. And then eventually I got into suits and I started being in this whole suiting business. And that was something quite different. And it's taken us far. I mean, we've been featured in the likes of Vogue, New York Times, GQs across the globe. It's been an amazing journey.
That's amazing. Really great, Pat. Yeah, and then just the last thing before we get into the presentation, maybe you can just share with me what you've learned about yourself in this period of lockdown that we've had.
I've actually learned that, I can be a bit crazy because sometimes I'm just sitting here and I'm like, maybe this is the way we should be working. I mean, and I think that's something I've learned about myself to say, well, maybe I'm not that crazy. I think this is, do we actually need offices? That's a question. Can we work from home? Those are the types of questions. But when you've got something like load shedding, what then? Do I need a generator? So I've learned a lot about myself in terms of actually being a techie, a person that loves working online, that's enjoying it. But I do miss people because I'm a talkative person. I'm an extrovert. I've actually realized that I do miss people in this period as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, great. So let's move over into, the content that you're going to be covering today. And I'm going to pop myself on mute and you're going to take it away. So thanks so much for doing this for us, Pat.
Awesome. So thank you very much, guys. I mean, just for today, we want to cover the main objectives is to understand the examiner's mindset, go through what is the examiner thinking when they actually put this paper together. What do they want from you? Understand that, unpack that. And then we want to understand, what do you have to put in? Are you putting in the long hours? Do you have to sit at work for 24 hours nonstop? Because a lot of students are spending a lot of time, but the results not coming. Why are the results not coming? When the marks are not coming, what do you have to do? How do you actually start generating marks? We're going to unpack that, just understand the psyche of that and get into a point where we're discussing how do you prepare for lectures? Because it's all important. It starts at the lecture stage. It actually doesn't start in the exam. Are you getting to your lectures having done the right thing? So we'll go through that. What do you do in the tuts? What are the tuts there for? What do you benefit from those tuts? And then we'll actually tap into what to do in the exam. And I'll show you a few magic tricks that we use. But bear in mind, these tricks, you have to practice it in a tut. You can't try this for the first time in an exam. And then we'll talk about time management. How do you manage your time and what should you be doing when it comes to this time management? What do you do in reading time? Are you highlighting? Are you not highlighting? What should you be doing? And then finally, we'll take a few questions from everyone. So without further ado, let's get straight into it and just unpack this lecturer that just wants the moon and the stars from me. I don't know how to pass this thing. What do they actually want? So as a lecturer, lecturers want people who are critical thinkers. So they will not actually just give you the answer. They want to actually realize, for example, if you've got an apple, do you know that a banana is also a fruit? So in a tut, you'll sit there and they'll talk about apples the whole day. You get to the exam and they give you a banana, but you have to think about it. It falls in the same family. So let's bring it closer to home, right? You will sit in a tut and they will give you a simple asset question. When you get into the exam, all of a sudden we're talking about intangible assets, but you understand they're still assets. They're still forming part of the same family. But we'll unpack a nice example at the end, and I want you guys to answer and see if we can actually get the answer to this, right? What do they also want? They want future problem solvers. For you to solve problems, you need to understand that you cannot just regurgitate what's in your textbook, what's in gripping gob. You have to take what you're getting out of the textbook and make sure you apply yourself. So most of the time, what I've realized, and spending a lot of time with students have a knack to, I've studied hard, but I don't know what the lecturer wants from me. Remember, you've got the principles. Don't spend time, and this is the first nugget, guys. Don't spend time on the things that you know. Spend time on your weaknesses. If you're good at auditing, don't spend 15 hours doing an audit question that'll make you feel good about yourself. Rather go do that standard costing question that's difficult and you know for a fact that you don't know how to understand. You want to solve problems. So I'll give you an example. When I was at WITS, we used to do something called construction contracts, IS 11, and that literally determined who passed and who failed, but it was not in the syllabus for actually board. So what's quite interesting, when I arrived in my first year of articles, the first client that I was put on was a construction client. And the people in the room had forgotten the standard. The second years didn't know it because they weren't tested from the other varsities. And I raised my hand, I said, that's IS 11, and I know how construction contracts work. They were creating a future thinker. They were actually making sure you were equipped for the real world. So sometimes you might be asked something that is not in the exam, but to understand the why. And we're going to get into this. Why do we do certain things? Why do we unpack a question in a certain? Why are you debating? Why are you here today? We're going to get deep, and we're going to think deeply and understand what are we trying to actually achieve, right? And then they want one amazing thing, and that is an application of self. Are you really applying yourself with what's in front of you? Are you actually giving it your all? Because at the same time, guys, I mean, when I was in my fourth year, there was a career day, and I was speaking to one of the ladies from the different firms, and they said to me, you really have to be selfish about your time. For those who are in third year and fourth year, be selfish about your time. If there's a party tomorrow, unfortunately, you can't attend that because it's too late. You know, have notice. So I used to give my family notice to say, if you want me to arrive at your bride, you have to tell me a month in advance because I have to plan out my time. There is no time. You have to apply yourself and give it your all. If you don't understand, are you going to consult? If you don't understand, are you actually in the right circles of friends who can help you solve the problem as it comes? The lecturers want you to apply yourself, right? And they also want you to be very, very inquisitive. You know, you must ask the questions. You must ask, why are things done in a certain way and not another way? Don't just accept that, oh, well, that's deferred tax and the rule says this. Why was it put in place like that? What is the thinking behind it and what problem is it solving? So right now, for example, we've got this whole COVID happening, right? Best believe you're going to see COVID in your exams. You need to start asking yourself, is that an indicator of impairment? So you see now, we're taking a real life example of something that's happening. Is that an indicator of impairment? In your standards, you'll never see anything called COVID. But what does it say about impairment indicators that are external? Does this form part of being an external indicator? That's the thinking that you must have. Be very inquisitive. That's what the lecturers want from you, right? And then finally, what the lecturers want from you is that you must be a sponge. You must absorb. Have you seen when you throw a sponge into water, it absorbs the knowledge. Absorb the knowledge as if you're absorbing water. Be a sponge. Be willing to learn, right? It's very important, guys, that we understand that you must be critical thinkers. You must be future problem solvers. You must apply yourself, be very inquisitive at it, and also be willing to sponge information. Be willing to take in the knowledge so that when you have to apply yourself, you've got the knowledge. So never ever doubt your knowledge. I've seen a lot of people, they doubt their knowledge. A lot of students go in and say, I know this, but I wasn't sure. Don't doubt yourself. Apply yourself in such a way that you know the principles. This is just like maths. Back in high school, when you were doing maths, the question might be out of 15, but as you write, as you get the principles, it doesn't matter what the final answer is, but you can land a 11 out of 15, even if you didn't get 15 out of 15, because you've applied the correct steps. Have the correct principles in place. Even if a question is difficult, make sure you've got that up front. Okay, so let's move into what do you actually need to put into this? What will be required of me? What do I have to do to make sure that I can pass? And what we're going to do here, guys, we're going to look at the pitfalls, and we're also going to be looking at what you should be doing, right? So the first pitfall that a lot of students do, they want to pull an all-nighter. So here's the catch about pulling an all-nighter. You're writing, let's say for argument's sake, at 9 a.m. the following day. It's 3 p.m. right now, and you want to study the whole night. You're not resting your body. You're actually going into the exam exhausted. And what tends to happen, when you pull these all-nighters, you end up getting a bright spark at like 6 a.m. in the morning, and you want to learn a new section. What that does, you're actually going to forget everything else that you've studied the whole night, because now you're worried about this one section, you start panicking, you start having anxiety, and what happens? You get into the exam and you black out. So be careful of these all-nighters. Do not spend your time literally trying to pull these all-nighters. You have to rest. You have to find a balance. You have to eat right. You have to drink water. So it's very important to balance your life. And you need to know your own body, guys. Listen to your body, okay? What else do students do? The second one that students do is that they like cramming. So you ask a student, what is an asset? And they will regurgitate. They will say it's a resource, past event, future economic benefits, and they give it to you just like that. It's very interesting, but the standard is right there, and it says that. Now apply yourself. Let's see that you can take an application of an asset and apply it. Let's see if you know what the answer is. So let me give you an example, and I want you to put in the answers as we go along. Think about this, right? The Mona Lisa that's sitting currently in Paris. How would you classify that? Is that IS 40? Is that IS 38? Is that IS 60? How would you classify that? Let's say that's a question. How would you go about it? And I want you guys to just pop answers on the side here, and we'll discuss it a bit later. But you'll see the crux of what I'm getting at. The cramming is a problem because when you cram, you're actually not understanding the why. Why is it an asset? What does it do? What do assets mean? You need to understand that the conceptual framework is there, the standard is there, but how do you apply it? So cramming, unfortunately, is a big pitfall because in the exam, they're not going to ask you, when do you debit? They're going to ask you, why are you debiting that? They will not give you the when or the how, they'll give you the why. And if you don't know the why, you are in trouble. You will find yourself sitting in that exam asking, what are they asking of me? What do they want of me? So back when I was studying, we were having a consolidation question and they gave us the analysis of equity. They said, there it is. Believe it or not, all the students were trying to find the error in the calculation that was correct because we were not used to it. We wanted to be accustomed to something that we could just cram, do it this way, plug it in, and we get the results. You will not get the results when you want to become a chartered accountant. You have to apply yourself, right? Let's move on to the next one. We tend to go for the shortest route possible. So you've got 8 tuts. You decide, what's the quickest way to do this? Let me just flip over to the solution. Oh yeah, I know exactly what the lecturer was going to ask you. I've got the answer. Believe it or not, you don't have the answer. If you had tried that question would have clapped you hard and you would have never known what's going on and you would have learned. Because you must remember, learning is a process, and that's why we're going to start with what do you do when you go to lectures, in TUTS, and then in the exam. It's a process. It doesn't just start with you studying for exams. It starts way before. So don't fall into the trap of looking for the shortest route possible. How can I get this thing quickly done and make sure you've got substance. Be a person of substance and understand what you're working for, right? And then the last one is the justification of the marks. So students will always justify their marks. No, if the lecturer had taught us this, I would have gotten that mark. Oh man, I just missed it. Or no, I just got 40, so it's good enough. Don't forget, guys, you're not competing just with your varsity. You are competing with the whole country that's doing CTA, and they're all gunning for the same job. They are all gunning for that articles, wherever it might be it with BDO, you are still competing with 1,000 other people. So don't justify your mark. Actually look at why didn't you get certain marks. Go into the why. Don't just stop there and say, I would have gotten it because I know what I was doing. Don't lie to yourself, guys. Be frank with yourself. I tell you right now, you'd rather feel pain while you're studying than feel pain in the exam. Muhammad Ali hated training. He didn't like it. But when he got into that ring, he was so confident that he danced in the ring. And the reason he was dancing was because he had actually understood that he was well prepared. So let's look at what you should be doing, right? First and foremost, you should do a deep analysis. And what do I mean by deep analysis? What do I mean when I say you should do a deep analysis? What are you good at, right? Everyone knows what they're good at. Oh, I'm good at tax. I feel like tax is easy. Tax might be easy for you, but difficult for the next person. So don't compare yourself and say, oh, well, if tax is easy for the rest of the class, it must be easy for me. Spend time where you realize that you've got weaknesses. Spend time analyzing why you don't know how to do CFCs. I'm not even sure if you still have CFCs in the syllabus, but understand what are you good at and what you're not good at. So analyze yourself and say, well, I'm not good at auditing. I don't understand when they speak of controls. I don't understand when they speak about substantive audit procedures. I've got no clue. Then step back and say, how do I unpack this? What is the principle? What is a control? For example, everyone here is a millennial. You've got a password on your phone. That's a control. What are you controlling? Why do you have that password? What are you trying to do? So now you start unpacking it. Bring the stuff back to real life. Bring it back to what you're doing. For example, if this is not an encrypted, call it live session, someone could have come in, disrupted the whole thing, but we've got controls in place. We've made sure that we've got controls in place so that no one can get into this. And this is a session just for you and brought to you by BDO, right? Let's now look at what else you need to focus on. You need to look at the quality, guys, it's important. Quality over quantity. A lot of students will say, oh, but I did 400 tuts. Woohoo, let's have a party. What's important is not the 400 tuts. Of the 400 tuts, what quality did you get? Do you understand the principles? Can you answer right now whether the Mona Lisa that's sitting in Paris is an asset, right? Is it an investment property? Is it an intangible asset? What standard are you going to apply? Do you know what you're doing? What's the quality? What's the depth? Understand that you need to get deep, guys. There's no cramming here. It's the quality that you're bringing through. And that quality, no matter how difficult the question is in an exam, that quality will come through, right? Then we're going to go to the third one. You should be creating what I call knowledge banks. Have a knowledge bank, guys. Go into your brain and say, I want to create a knowledge bank. So make sure that you are creating banks of knowledge, understanding what certain things are doing, what moves this. If they change one part of the question, do you know that you can go into your knowledge bank and say, I see what you're doing. I understand that you've changed this, and I know how to actually approach it. I know how to change my approach and go a certain way because I can see, and I'm going into my knowledge bank and saying, I understand my mistakes and I understand what I should be doing, and therefore I'm doing it this way. So it's very important, guys. You have to have deep analysis. You have to have quality over the quantity and then create your knowledge bank. But finally, you need to learn the why. Why and not how, not when. Why are certain things done in a certain way? Because everyone knows how to debit. Everyone knows how to credit. Everyone knows when to depreciate, for example. But why are you depreciating? Why would you depreciate an asset? What's the reason? What's the rationale behind it? Ask yourself, what is the thought process of it? So get into it and understand why every single thing that you do going forward. Why are you doing it? Why are you actually studying to be a CASA? There has to be a reason. Find that reason, find that vision board and play with it, right? Understand what it means to you. So guys, let's make sure, we're not pulling those all-nighters. Look after yourself, have deep analysis, Let's not cram, let's put in the quality, guys. Let's not look for the shortest possible route, but have a knowledge bank. Let's not justify our marks, but learn the why. Why did I not get 5 out of 5 and I got 1 out of 5? Understand where those other 4 marks are, why the lecturer set it in a certain way, what I should be doing. Very important, guys. Make sure that you put those into play and you'll see that the results will start coming. So what do you do now when you're actually failing? What does it mean? So you are in an exam and you fail. How do you come back from that? Like, how do you feel? I mean, I've been in the same situation. So let me just shed some light here. When I was in my 3rd year, so I had never failed anything. I had a bursary, passed everything, and I was literally, I still remember the suck because it haunts me. A student throughout, and I got to 3rd year, passed everything, and I got 49% for financial accounting, and I got a sup. So I said, oh, well, it's a sup. I'll write the exam. And you will not believe this. I was thrown away by the smallest little thing. And what threw me away that day was the name of the company. Opened the script, The company's name is You're Doomed CC, right? That's the name of the company, and in brackets, doomed. So every time I read a sentence, doomed, 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 psychologically, it messed with me. It messed with me so much that till today, I still remember that question paper that it was called You're Doomed CC. And that was quite some 10 to 11, 12 years ago. And I still remember it because it stuck with me. So what do? Will you climb the mountain when the marks are not coming? Will you get up this mountain? Do you believe in yourself that much that you'll be able to climb that mountain? So when it's tough, guys, when the results are not coming, remember why you started. What is on that vision board? You might feel that, you're crippled. You've got one leg here and you have to climb this mountain, but you still do it because you believe in a bigger purpose. You believe why you're doing what you're doing. You need to give it your all. And I just want us to actually discuss purpose and actually understand what I'm talking about here. So why do we do what we do, guys? Why do we actually, as BDO, why are we doing what we do? Because we care about you. As a student, I needed someone who could say, come, let me hold your hand. And the great thing is that I had that. What about the student that doesn't? Will you climb this mountain? I can guarantee you can definitely climb the mountain. But why? Why are you doing this? Why do you have to sit and struggle and not see your family? You need to have that purpose and understand why you need to get the CASA, right? So everyone knows what we do, right? So we do auditing, we do tax, we do MANAC. Everyone understands that. That's a guarantee. We all know what we're doing. Those are the core subjects that we do, right? And everyone understands that's the core subjects that we're doing. We like doing these subjects. Okay, but guys, the why. The critical part is that why, right? So purpose, let's unpack what purpose does. Purpose actually defines your drive. Purpose defines who you are, what drives you. If you don't know why, it's very difficult to find yourself saying, this is what drives me, this is what puts me in the driving seat. What purpose also does is that it translates well with other people. You can tell when a person has a drive. You can tell when a person is passionate about something, when they believe in it. Because when the marks are not coming, you need to go back to your purpose and say, I will actually make this. I will get this correct. I will make sure that I get to where I want to be. Purpose also does something which is quite interesting, right? In the face of challenges, right? It compels you to stay rooted. When the marks are not coming, when it is difficult, it compels you to stay rooted and stay true to say, this is my purpose. I believe in myself that I can make this. So let's look at it, guys. Yes, you've got the knowledge banks, you're building it, you're working hard. You still have to have the purpose. You still have to have the crazy mindset. If you look at the likes of Steve Jobs, they had the purpose. He knew what he was doing. Elon Musk, he says by 2024, he'll be on Mars. People probably thought he was crazy when he said he's going to get America back into space. He's just done it. That is purpose. He stayed rooted to what he wanted. So make sure you stay rooted in what you want, guys. What it also does, purpose, it literally inspires consistency. When you've got a purpose and you've got a goal and you've set them out, you're going to be consistent. You're going to make sure that you go for it. You're not going to stop. And that is important, guys. When the marks are not coming, make sure that you're consistently putting in the hours. But putting in the hours with something we'll talk about later called studying smart. I love that buzzword, study smart, study smart. What does it mean? Everyone used to tell me study smart, but what does it mean? And I'll show you what study smart actually entails, okay? What it also does is that it awakens your critical thinking. And remember, the lecturers want this critical thinking. They want you to be a critical thinker. So they want you must be awake. If you've got a purpose, you have to make sure your critical thinking is actually up and it's there. You have to be very sharp, guys. And then the last two, it helps you stay focused regardless of the circumstances. No matter what, guys, even though I had that exam, you're doomed CC, I still got out at the end of the day. I went back, I didn't pass that sub, but I went back and I said, even though I didn't pass, and Vince introduced something which is quite ridiculous if you ask me, so I'd passed 3 subjects, I'd only failed FINAT, failed that sub, And the following year, I was told I have to repeat all 4 subjects, including the 3 that I had passed. It wasn't nice, but that's what it was. That was the circumstance. Those were the rules. They changed, and I had to pass what I had actually passed the previous year. If I failed it, guess what? I fail again. So it happens, guys. Stay rooted to your purpose and you'll be fine. And what purpose does, it makes you accountable. It literally makes sure that you are accountable to your purpose, to your goals. And also, guys, as students, have accountability buddies. You know, have someone that's going to call you out for not pushing when you have to. Sometimes you can call yourself out, but other people love to have that buddy. As much as we've got gym buddies, have a study buddy who will call you out and say, listen, you actually have not done all your tuts this week. What's going on? Because, guys, we need each other. We're all in this boat. We're all studying the same thing. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure you know why you're doing what you're doing. Yes, we know that you're doing audit tax. We know that. But why? Stay rooted to that and we'll understand. So now let's get into the prep for the lectures, the tuts, the exams. So this is fun now, because what do you do, guys, you know, before you go to a lecture? What do you actually do? Do you actually just sit and say, oh, well, you know, we're doing something called embedded derivatives tomorrow and it should be fun? Or do you pre-read? Do you actually sit and read the slides for tomorrow? Do you actually go through the slides and say, let's see what's happening here? You know, guys, for muscle to grow, you have to go into the gym, whether you like it or not. Well, there's some people who take shortcuts and they'll take animal stack and this and that. But at the end of the day, that is not substance. You need to have substance. You need to know what you're doing, you know. And I love this phrase, victory loves preparation. When you are prepared, when your mindset is in the right space, when you've done what you've had to do, when you've put in that effort, the results will come, right? So the first thing we should be doing is practice, 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 because you're going to get perfect with it. But how do you practice? And this is where Study Smart comes in. Your practicing has to be intelligent. Don't do what you already know the answer to. What are you doing? You're just giving yourself a massive chip on your shoulder. But what have you achieved? So you need to pre-read. So you read this thing and you're like, what? Embedded what? What are we talking about here? Why is a derivative embedded? What does the word derivative even mean? You've read it, you planted a seed in your brain that, you know what, I've got the seed and it's on hard ground. Tomorrow I need to get this seed into some good soil. You go to your lecture. When you get to your lecture, you now need to ask yourself, why was this concept developed? So you've got the seed now, you give the seed some good soil. Now it's some good soil, and you must remember, guys, we're going to get into the seed needs to grow into a tree. The seed pops into the soil now. But the soil is hard. We need to do what? We need to cultivate this land. We need to make sure that the land is proper for the seed to grow. Why was the concept developed? Why do you have to have a derivative that's embedded? Why do you have to have assets? What's an asset? What's a liability? Why? What's going on? When you go into the lecture with that mindset, you're going in there asking yourself questions. And now you want answers. So what do? You get more attentive. You start asking why. And now you have to ask yourself, once the lecturer has explained it, can you take that same concept and explain it to someone else? Can you actually say, I've pre-read, I was a seed, I'm in soil. The soil has been cultivated and now there's watering now. There's some sunlight. Can you tell the same thing in your own words, not word for word from the textbook or the lecturer, what it means? Do you understand what it means? Do you understand that the painting that's sitting in Paris is an intangible asset or an investment property or I-16? Why? Wait, how does it go? Do you understand that? Let me give you a little clue of what the answer might lead to. There's a standard called IS-8. And IS-8 has a very interesting term. It says, if there's no standard for what you're dealing with, you need to go to a standard that's very similar or represents what you're talking about. I'm not giving you word for word what it's saying, but I'm telling you what IS-8 speaks about. Make sure you understand where to go and look and find these nuggets and bring them down together, right? Can you explain to someone else, right? And then we get to the buzzword, study smart. When you study smart, it means you're not spending thousands of hours. You're actually looking for the output, the quality of the output. So you have 8 tuts. You know for a fact that there's no way you're going to do all 8, right? You look at the topics and you look at what's in those tuts. Which tut do you do first? I can tell you exactly what students do. I've got 8 tuts. Let me do the ones with the answers. So 7 out of the 8 will have all the solutions. You do them, you do them. When you get to that, let's say now it's 11 at night. When you get to the 8th one, it doesn't have a solution. So what do? You're just like, oh, I'm not going to do this thing. Let me look at it. So you just read it, you glance over it, and you go to your tut. Now, you said, I've done my tuts. Because they'll ask students, have you done your tuts? Yes, I've done all of my tuts. I'm great. But you have not done the most critical tut. The tut that will test your knowledge. The tut that will test whether you understand the principle. You have gone and done 7 tuts with the solution in front of you. And guess what you've done? When you're marking yourself, you're like, yeah, man, that's exactly what I meant. And you give yourself a tick. A tut that's supposed to be 45 minutes, you are now taking an hour 15. Guess what? You're lying to yourself. You need to be smart. You need to treat yourself as if you're in an exam. It takes a lot of discipline, I know. You're going to treat yourself like you're in an exam. You're going to study smart. You're going to do tuts that make you feel uneasy, uncomfortable. And guess what? You'll feel it in your stomach. You'll be like, something's not right. I feel a little bit offy. And the reason you feel off is because you don't know what to do. Rather feel that pain while you're training than feel that pain when you write the exam. I'd rather feel that pain while I'm training. That's just the honest truth, right? The next step is to actually focus on your weaknesses. Make sure you know what you're weak at. Make sure you're spending time, you're doing the tuts that you actually don't like, that you hate. You're going through past papers, not to look at the solution, but to actually sit down and get the answer that's supposed to be the right answer. So let me give you another trick. As I said, I'll be keeping some good tabs on some nice little tricks. I had 4 books, and this is when I figured out the studying smart. I had 4 books, brand new books, because I felt like I need to buy brand new books. So I went, I got 4 books, and I labeled them auditing, tax, MANAC, FINAC. And what I did, if I did a tut and I got something wrong, so say for example, I didn't know when to do a rate change or how to do a rate change or why there was a rate change with regards to deferred tax, where there was an investment property and there was an IAS 16, I always used to get confused. So what I did, I'd go in and say the FINAC book deferred tax as a header. Within deferred tax, I don't know why the rate when I'm dealing with an investment property and I'm dealing with an IAS 16, I don't know the difference. I don't know why I'm getting it wrong. What should I be doing? And I wrote it out. And believe it or not, when I get into an exam and I see an investment property and I see, because I got it wrong in the tut, and I've now learned why I got it wrong, why I'm not getting it correct, and I started seeing, oh, that's what I got wrong. Okay, now when I went into the exam, the first thing I was looking out for was exactly that. And when they didn't put it in, I was like, now deferred tax is not that difficult because it doesn't have those 2 things that I've actually gone and practiced. So I would spend time practicing a similar question to what I got wrong so that I know that can I do it? Because if I can't do it, what am I doing? If I don't know how it works and I don't understand the concept, what am I doing? Could I explain it to someone else? No, I can't. So why am I not spending time on it? So focus on weaknesses, right? And then we need to consult with topic experts. When I speak about topic experts, guys, I'm not talking about consulting with the lecturers only or consulting with the tutors only. You can consult with your friends. You all know or have that friend that gets 90s. Ask them. I'm struggling when it comes to standard costing because when the lecturer actually gives me the variance and tells me to work out the standard, I can't. I don't know what to do because I know how to go that way, but I can't take it backwards. So find out what's going on, what you should be doing, how you should be approaching it. And also remember, guys, the mindset you have when you're doing auditing, when you're doing FinEc, when you're doing tax is all different. You need to put on different hats. And that's why I say, qualifying for this degree is the most difficult of the actuarial science. That's just my opinion. Don't quote me on this, but it is the most difficult because 1 minute you're an auditor, the next minute you're a cost accountant, the next minute you're financial accountant, and the next minute, you're actually doing finance and you're doing taxation. It's like, where do I go? You pulled in so many different directions that want you to think differently all the time. You cannot apply your tax mindset into the mindset that you have in auditing. You have to have an open mind and understand that each subject wants you to apply yourself. You have 4 of yourself. I'm actually saying you must be a little bit bipolar. You have 4 characters for 4 subjects. So literally think of it that way. I'm a cost accountant. What would a cost accountant do? How would I calculate these costs? For example, say you're doing activity-based costing. Activity-based costing speaks of the activity-based costs, though it's in the word. But if you don't understand what activity-based cost means, you need to go back and understand first what it means. What's the concept? And then you ask yourself, is this cost that I want to add in an activity based on this project? If it's not, why are you adding it? And don't doubt yourself. Stick to your guns, guys. Make sure you understand what you're doing, when you're doing it, why you are doing it, guys. So, and then the final thing that you need to do is you need to reflect, guys. You need to make sure that you reflect. That reflection process will always happen in your books. So another trick that I used to do, the day before an exam, I never used to study. Why? It was my reflection day. I would literally go to the cinema and watch a movie and get my head off things because I'd realized that's my day of reflection. I was letting everything simmer in and I would just chill the day before. But don't try this if you can't do it in chunks. Don't actually think the first time you'll do it, it'll work. Make sure that you've actually followed the steps. You've actually learned from the pre-reading into the lecture, asking questions, understanding, consulting. And then when you actually do this, it's at a time that you're actually comfortable and you're also okay with the level of knowledge you've got. Sometimes actually understand this is the knowledge I've got. I'm happy with it and I'll be able to run with it, right? So let's look at the trick I was talking to you about in time management, and it's something I also implemented when I was studying. And a lot of students always say, if I had more time, I was going to get the marks. If I had more time. Guys, it's not about the quantity. It's about the quality. There's some exams that I've written and I've said, even if they gave me 2 more hours, I still would have seen flames. So what do you do in your reading time? What do you sit there and do? I can tell you what students do. They take a highlighter and they highlight and they start making notes frantically. But wait, you don't have the question. So what are you writing? I can tell you what you're writing. You're writing what makes you feel comfortable. You're writing what makes you sit in a state you say, if they don't ask me for this, I will force my answer to agree to this. So that doesn't work. In your reading time, it's for you to get comfortable. So another example, when I got into an exam, I didn't like when a table was shaking. So it shakes and I'm like, oh my word, what's going on? So I started learning that irritates me. So what would I do when I was doing tax? I'd sit at a table that irritates me. And then I figured you can just take usually take in a clear space case. I take out all my pens and I just put the space case underneath the desk and I balance it. It almost gave me that balancing act in my mind to say, you're fine, you've got this. Mentally, guys, you have to be ready as well. If, for example, when it rains, it irritates you, make sure on days that it rains, when you're doing tuts, sit down and try a tut because you have to prepare for the conditions you're going to get, right? So in your reading time, make sure when you're reading for context to get comfortable. You're highlighting the same company, but not making notes so that you answer a question in a specific way. Just making notes to say, this company is owned by this. Make your diagrams, draw your timeline, but wait for the question to make a decision, okay? In the writing time now, what do we do when writing time comes through? We actually just start writing. Everyone just writes, everyone writes. and you'll see what you should be doing in writing time. Everyone just starts. I know this sounds crazy. In writing time, when writing time starts, you actually shouldn't be writing. Because as I said, in your reading time, you are reading with no question. So writing time comes, you start writing, you're running, and guess what? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to scratch out the whole thing because you didn't read properly. And that's why we're going to get into something called rereading. You need to reread, right? So there's also something called a mark generation time. So for you to get to mark generation, you need to realize that it's about scoring marks. You have to get a minimum at least of 50 to pass, which means why do you go, for example, you've got a full income statement, you've got the answer there. You just have to move the amount. So people do this in an exam. They want to calculate on the and add everything up. Let me tell you a trick. Come up with a number. 1,050,000. Take the 1 million and transfer it into your retained earnings column in your statement of changes in equity. Do you know that you'll get the consequential mark? Why? Because your steps are correct. Your revenue that's sitting in the income statement is correct. Your cost of sale is correct. Your OPEX is correct. Your interest is correct. Your 28% is correct. No one cares that you can add up, guys. We know that you can add up. Make sure you generate marks. It's about generating marks. It's not about actually saying, did I finish the paper? You know, I would rather have you get 70% and not finish the paper than finish the paper and get 20%. It's not about finishing. It's about the quality that you put in, right? What we're going to speak about now is consolidation time. What do I mean by consolidation time? Consolidation time, I'm basically saying, how do we go back and we consolidate? So a trick that I used to do as well, instead of starting at A, so I looked at the question and I said, I think A is too difficult. I'll go to G because I know that G is simple. I'll knock it out the park in the shortest amount of time. So I'll do G first, but what you need to do then, have your question paper on your left all the time and scratch it out because you need to know where you've actually not answered so that you don't miss a question. And also, my clock was always in front of me for time management purposes. Make sure you don't overstep. But you know where this overstepping happens? In the tuts. So if you're overstepping in your tuts, best believe in the exam, you're going to overstep and you're going to cry about not having enough time to finish the exam, right? And then the final step is to reflect. Reflect on how you did in the exam, what you should be doing. And that's, I mean, with this lockdown, it's actually great that you guys have some reflection time. You can sit and analyze, where am I? Where should I be? Where's the class? Where should the class be? So make sure, guys, that you put in those efforts and put in that reflection time. It's so important. It's so vital to reflect and introspect and look yourself in the mirror and say, where should I be? Why am I not at that level? What do I still need to do, right? So let's look at this now. How do we actually do this? What should we be doing when the exam knocks, right? I'm going to show you the time machine. I want you guys to try this, right? It might work for you, it might not work for you, but it definitely worked for me. So in reading time, we all read and we get to a point where it's 30 minutes reading time and 1 mark equals 1.5 minutes, right? So what we did, you read and then the question comes, but when the question comes, what we do, we read the question, we go look at the notes we're making in reading time, and we start writing. Start frantically writing and answering. And then what happens is that they actually said, just give us 1 column. Give us the retained earnings column and don't give us share capital. Don't give us anything else. Just give us 1 column. You've gone and done the whole thing. You know what you're going to start doing? You're going to start scratching. When you start scratching in your mind, you're thinking, oh my word, what am I doing? What am I doing? You start losing your bearings. When you were focused, you start losing your bearings. So what did I do? I changed the 1 mark equals 1.5 and I made it equal 1.2 minutes, which meant when everyone else starts writing, I don't write. And that's what I meant earlier on. When writing time starts, you don't write. You go back and you say, okay, now that I've got the question now, remember guys, this is applicable to when you've got that 30 minutes reading time and it's inevitable. Whether you're in first year, second year, third year, By the time you get to third year and fourth year, you're going to have the question not in front of you. You're going to have this kick in. So the earlier you start practicing it, the better. Now you've got the question and you've got the scenario. You put them together. And what you start doing is that you start reading that scenario with this 0.3 minutes per mark, basically, which means you've got an extra reading time that you've created, right? Guess what? When you read with context and you read with a question in mind, you know what to look for in that solution. So everyone around you, and that's where it's uncomfortable, everyone around you will start writing. You wait, you reread, and you start reading it, and you say, this is what I need, this is what I need. You start having those bulb moments. It switches on. When you start putting pen to paper, you're not even going to be writing stuff that's unnecessary. There's been times where I've seen that students will get the whole page scratched out. You say, what are you talking about here? Because you just want to write. It's not about you writing 50 procedures in an auditing question. It's about you writing the top 30 that are correct, that give you the answer. And how we see this usually is that the lecturers sometimes will give you the procedures. They'll give you the first 5. You must cost crossed, check accuracy. Guess what? All of a sudden your wheels fall off because those are the easy marks. But if you reread and you go back, you now start picking up because you've got the question in mind and now you're looking for the solution. When you put pen to paper, you're actually putting pen to paper with the answer in mind. And to get confident, you've already seen that, oh, G, H, I are easy. Let me start there. Guess what? You're gaining time in terms of your time management. You're gaining time because it's the easier side of things. Usually in an exam, the hard questions you'll pick up and you'll say, that one is hard. Let me end off with this one. When you end off with it, guess what? Even though you had a little amount of time, you'd rather score 5 out of 15 in the hard one and get the other marks in the difficult part. So out of 85, you score 60 and you go to the last one that's out of 50 and you get 5, you still passed. But if you start with the hard one, it knocks your confidence, you're out of the game, you don't know what to do anymore. The wheels have fallen off, you get 30% and you go home and you say, what? This is not meant for me. Guys, this is meant for you. You can actually do it, but you have to practice this in tuts. Every tut has a time allocated to it. Make sure if the time is over, look at how many marks you've scored within the time. Try this time machine at home. If it works for you, it works. If it doesn't work for you, but you have to try it. Give it a shot and see if you'll get the results. But I can tell you for a fact, this worked for me because now I was actually smarter in the way I approach questions and how I even flagged my book. Usually everyone, that's studying CTA and studying third year or walking around campus with the fancy books, understand that book is for you to know where to find things. So I started flagging accordingly. So I knew that's the standard. Okay, fine, not a problem. For example, in tax, what's the exception? I'd put it in orange. What's the exception to the exception? I'll put it in red. So it was green, normal, not a problem. Amber, like a robot, put it there in orange. The third one would be red to know that, listen, danger here. This is where they play. When I highlight in that red. When I highlight orange and the green. So when I opened my ledger in the exam, I knew exactly what I was looking for, where I was going. Until today, I still remember sections off by heart. It's like crazy. I know where to find things because what I started doing, I understood, why do I need this? What does it apply to? What is it going to do? Why am I doing it? But it's about the full-on application. So guys, I really, really wish you the best of luck in your studies. And we'll take questions now.
Thank you so much, Pat. That was really great. I wish I knew half of those things when I was doing my university studies many years ago. So there've been a couple of comments that I'm just going to read out first and then we'll get to some questions. But okay. Anonymous said, thank you so much for the wonderful nuggets. Tamron September said, thank you for the motivation. And then one of the questions that came through early on was, what's the best way to create a knowledge bank?
So the best way to create a knowledge bank is actually going through your syllabus holistically. It's building blocks. So if you in first year right now do not understand the basic concept of, let's call it owner's equity, and you don't understand what owner's equity is, what it means. That means when you get to second year and there's an acquisition from a foreign subsidiary or let's call it a foreign entity buying a South African company, which makes a subsidiary, you will not know that. You won't understand the whole. So to create a knowledge bank, you need to understand from day one, What do you know? What don't you know? What you don't know, you need to put into your toolbox and say, I don't know this, therefore I will go and sharpen the skill. I will go and learn how to depreciate. I don't know how to do it. I will spend time. I will practice. I will probe. I'll ask questions and I'll go to tests. I'll also make sure. So what I'm saying is that to create a knowledge bank, make sure you also surround yourself with people that are like-minded, people that are going to encourage you and teach you things that you didn't know. So I've always realized that I learn mostly by speaking to other people. That's the way I learn. So I spent a lot of time speaking and saying, but I thought it was this way. Why is it not that way? So what starts happening, some people learn by writing, but don't write what's in the textbook and say that's a knowledge bank. It's very important, guys. Very, very important.
That's great. Another question that came through, not academic or technical or related, but more about you. What was your purpose behind becoming a CA? What was the reason that you wanted to study this qualification?
So my purpose behind it was to be a CA that's different, and that's why I'm known as a Rockstar CA, because I want to be a CA that's not normal, a CA that's not typical, that walks in and you're like, oh, that's a CA, boring grey suit. I wanted to touch people's lives. I wanted to make sure that when I walk in, I can be a new generation CA. I can inspire those that come after me, and hence I love going back and spending time speaking to students, because I wish I had that back then. So my whole purpose behind it was be a CA that's different and show the world that you can be a CA that's totally different. That was my full-on purpose, and I think I'm enjoying that. I'm actually having a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, gone are the days of these little old men in grey suits. So yeah. All right, then a follow-up question from the same person. What advice can you give with regards to approaching the amount of content we deal with as we are studying and using the IFRS standards for assessment purposes? So how did you study from your standards and prepare the standards for the assessments? Thank you.
Look, that's a brilliant observation. There's a lot of content, guys. And believe it or not, the way the content is so much, it gets overwhelming. So to make sure you don't get overwhelmed, when you, for example, pre-reading, you're probably pre-reading from your standard, right? Now, within that standard, you've pre-read, you know what's going on. You're like, I don't know a clue. Make sure that on your, call it slides, because we always get slides in class, write down the things you didn't understand. And one thing I'll tell you guys, put up your hand in class. I know it sounds weird, it sounds silly, but you're paying 60,000 Rand. The lecturer is there for you. Put your hand up and say, I don't understand 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure that when you leave that lecture, you've actually gotten the knowledge. Because what happens, we keep quiet, you go home, guess what? You're going to go back to that standard. Firstly, you pre-read, you didn't understand the standard. Secondly, you went to the lecture, you didn't understand it. What makes you think you'll understand it when you get home? So ask the question in the lecture. Ask the question, get the answer. If you don't have the answer there and then, make sure you actually go and consult. Because if you don't do that, the work becomes overwhelming, because now you don't know which type to do. Once you know where to focus and what you don't understand, you can start now focusing on those weaknesses and getting through the content. There might be too much content, guys. There might be a point where you're like, this is too much, I will not get through everything. But if you've done the hard questions, believe it or not, the other, let's say you cover 5 out of the 8 types, but you've done the hard ones and you've done the unseen and you've applied yourself in that unseen, you will start seeing that the hard concepts lie in what you're actually running away from and not actually what's sitting there. So make sure you're spending time on the quality that you're getting out as opposed to the quantity. So that's why I say, guys, yes, you might feel like I can't have time to sleep. I don't have time. I have to do it. It's not about doing everything. It's about understanding concepts and getting the quality.
Great. Someone asked, they said they've just started using the tax legislation and are struggling because there's so many provisions that aren't in the same chapters as their topics. So how do I go about linking them?
So yeah, that's actually quite nice, because then you need to understand. So let's say we're talking section 1 and we're talking about gross income, right? So gross income is one of those interesting standards. Well, section 1 talks about gross income, but it excludes capital. But capital, what's quite interesting is that it's not sitting in the ledge, it's sitting in case law. So you need to already start thinking, okay, this is gross income, that's what it is, it's coming in. What isn't gross income is the legislation, is the case law. How do I tie it in? Then you have to go and study and understand what the case law says. right? You need to see where it links. So if you've got, for example, section 11 will give you your deductions. But you must remember, for the left, there might be a right. In tax, it's not always the case. But if there is a right, make sure you study them in conjunction. So know what prohibits the left. From a section 11, there's section 23. What prohibits it? How does it prohibit it? What does it mean? So study them together. Don't study them apart from each other. So when you're highlighting, highlight and cross-reference also to that, whatever blocks that specific section you might be doing. Because if you don't and you study them in isolation, what happens is that when you go and study the other one, you've forgotten that there was actually a rule in page 1. So make sure you cross-link, guys. Always remember, all these subjects come together. So as I said in my example, you've got this asset that's sitting in Paris, whether you're going to call it IS 38, whether you're going to make it IS 40, whether you're going to make it IS 16, at the end of the day, there might be tax implications to it, right? If I ask you to audit it, you'd have to apply yourself as an auditor. If I ask you to cost it, what would you say? Would you say, well, I'm going to count the hours that Picasso spent there? Am I going to count the paint? So you see, guys, look at it holistically. Don't look at it as one. Think about what could happen. What if? Have the what if in mind before you just look at it in isolation. The reason I asked you that, guy, I'm still waiting for a few answers. I haven't seen answers yet. The reason I asked, I wanted to see where you classify this, right? It's a painting. Is the painting itself, the physical thing, an asset? Is it intangible asset because it's a painting that was there for years? It's actually a very, call it historical painting. What's the intrinsic value of this thing? So that's what you must unpack, guys. Make sure that when you study with that in mind.
Great. So Pat, Nicole asks, did you find that repeating your third year helped you when you got to your CTA and in passing your CTA?
I think it did. But it also taught me quite some good lessons to say, don't be complacent. Just because it's been easy. I mean, not necessarily easy. Just because you've passed everything and you never failed does not mean it's not. So what happens is that it gave me a boost to say it can also happen to you. It actually told me you're not immune to this. It's like playing for Barcelona and you've always won throughout the years because you've always had Messi. And the day that he's not there, you start losing. It actually humbles you. So that failure actually humbled me and said, come back to ground and actually realize that it's not as easy as you think. So it actually teaches you more about character. I always say you see a person's character when actually in failure than when they're winning. So make sure that when the marks are not coming, you're not passing, make sure that you actually understand you're building character and you come back stronger when you actually have to do probably your fourth year or your CTA.
Yeah, that's really true. All right, we've got a lot of questions. I'm going to try pick on a couple more, and then we might have to answer some of them offline. But something that stood out to me is I always see the students on campus walking around with these beautifully coloured sticky flags in their pockets. And so this question stood out to me. The person says, I don't have a strategy for flagging, and I'm in CTA. Is it too late?
It's never too late, but you've almost formulated a working formula without even knowing it. So if you go back and look at your third year, how did you flag then? Have you already flagged your books now? If you haven't, then maybe approach it like the robot, like I said, where you say green is let's go. It's a simple yes, it is. No problem there. Orange is caution. There might be an exemption to it. Red is the exemption to the exemption. And in CTA, I can tell you right now, they're not going to ask you what is the interest exemption. They're going to actually want you to go deeper. They will go deeper. They will not ask you the what's on the surface. They will go actually and unpack. So make sure in your CTA, guys, especially the guys that are doing CTA, it's about application. CTA is a culmination of all your 3 years, and they want to see, are you ready to go and start your articles? And this is where you need to be applying yourself. So if you want to reflag, you can reflag, but also just look in your third year, was the kind of flagging working for you? Because it's person to person. You might feel that it worked for you. If it did, then okay, stick to it. But if it didn't, sit down and ask yourself, when I open this flag, this book, call it at 2 a.m. and someone says, find this, is there a color scheme to it? Because sometimes when there's too many colors all over the place, you're just like, I don't know where to look. And you spend time in the exam looking for things instead of going to reference. Remember, guys, your books being there are just there for reference. It's for you to say, oh, okay, reference and move on. Not for you to sit and read the standard and try and find the answer. No, 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 guys. The answer's not there. Make sure you understand that part. It's very important.
Great. All right. Then, yeah, someone was just asking about what did a balanced day in the life of student Pat look like when it came to studying, exercise, social life? How did you find your balance?
Sure, it was a bit crazy. I think it was a mixture of things. So at Wits, there was a staircase. So what we do in between lectures, we chill on the staircase. So lectures would be about 45 minutes, 90 minutes. Then you have a break in between, or you've got tuts. So we'd sit on the stairs. So we made it a habit that we go to the lecture, come back out of the lecture, sit on the stairs and just laugh and speak about different things. Not necessarily speak about what happened in class or what the lecturer was speaking about, but just get your mind off things. From there, you go to a tut. Typically, from a tut, we'd probably have, there was a place called Bazoli. We'd go and play some cricket or some soccer for like 30, 40 minutes. And then it's literally supper, and then it's your tuts and you're working again. But what I did and what worked for me was in between, there was these mini breaks. So I made sure I had these breaks in between lectures, in between tuts, and I'd always make sure that on Friday was my reward day. And on Friday, literally after lectures, I'd just relax. I know some varsities don't have lectures on Friday. So on Fridays, instead of doing tuts, I'd take it easy and I'd start again on the Saturday. But make sure you've also got some time where you can relax. But yeah, that's typically how my student life looked.
No, that's great. It's so important to do that and to have that break and to give yourself, yeah, a bit of fun as well. All right, so Pat, I'm just going to end off probably with one more, and then what we will do, like I said, is we can answer the rest of the questions that we weren't able to get to offline. But yeah, the last one just speaks to your purpose and how does one really find their purpose? I know you answered a bit earlier about what your purpose is, but was it something that you always knew, or did it take time to think through, or did experiences shape your purpose? Because I think a lot of students, and even when you start working, it can be a struggle to find your passion and the thing that is driving you.
Yeah, I think I fully agree. I mean, I think purpose is not necessarily something that you're like, this is my purpose. Sometimes the passion, you see, I love this, I enjoy it, but it's sometimes your experiences, it's what you went through and you actually realize that, shucks, if I only had a person who I could call. So what started shaping it and then giving it more definitive role was, when I started spending a lot of time with CTA students and spending a lot of time mentoring students, I was like, wow, this is what I love. I enjoy this. It's something that I enjoy. It's something that gives me, it fulfills you. You actually feel when something is your purpose, you actually feel that I'm fulfilled. I mean, it's not monetary or anything when it comes to students. I go and speak to them. I've got a lot of students who contact me on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and we just discuss questions and I always give it back to them. I'll never give a student an answer. I'll never say, well, do this. I literally say, but what do you think? What do you want to do? It's just to bounce off, and it just gives me joy. I really, really enjoy it because I feel that it's such a difficult transitioning. I mean, from you going, I literally used to say, I felt like I was in grade 12. I skipped grade 13 and 14, went straight to grade 15 in my first year, 16, 17, and then in fourth year, you're like in grade 25 and you don't know how you got there. And that's literally how I felt. But there was no one I could bounce off and no one I could speak to. And for me, I really, really enjoy this because it's fun. It gives me life. The students actually are hungry, they want it, but sometimes you just want to be that voice of reason. Yeah.
Thanks. Do you want to plug yourself on social media?
Well, social media is quite difficult. Then I'll get like an influx and like, oh, but Pat didn't respond to us. But guys, definitely, if you want to contact me directly, I am on Facebook at Pat Mokgatle. I am on Facebook. I am currently full, so I've reached my cap, so I can't take any more. Requests. So what you guys can actually do is that you can actually pop us an email at bdo@bdobuilds.co.za, and I mean, we'll definitely respond from there. But I am on social media, Twitter, same, Pat Mokgatle, and then I'm also on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Pat. And yeah, I really just resonated with your final answer there. You know, I think the firm really encourages our staff to pay it forward once they do move up from being a student to a trainee and then into the management and leadership ranks. And there's such a sort of tangible feeling of giving back and mentoring and really guiding people in their careers at BDO. So it's something that makes me super proud to be a part of the firm, and you're definitely a role model for that. So thank you for sharing with us today. And like Pat said, please, if you are interested in finding out more about our firm, you are welcome to visit our website. You can apply there. You can also drop a mail to the email that Pat mentioned, and we'll get back to you. And then also Justine from our marketing department will send you all a link to the slides from today's presentation. So if you weren't scribbling down notes of everything that Pat was saying, you'll get all that content emailed to you next week sometime as well. But yes, thank you so much for joining us. And like I said at the beginning, we are running these webinars every 2 weeks. So you're on our mailing list now. If you tick the box to say we are allowed to email you again, we will definitely send you the invite for all the rest in the series. And have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thanks so much again, Pat. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.